Hello, everyone. Oh, my video's not there. It'll cut in and out. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our lessons in Tanya class. We're in the middle of chapter 12. Last week, I think we finished up Did we finish up a little bit of chapter 11, I think, and then we started into chapter 12. This chapter 11 was a little
Yeah, that's
shorter.
correct.
Alrighty, cool. So chapter 12, I think I just labeled it at 12 instead of 12.1 anyways. We're in chapter 12 of part 1 of lessons in Tanya. If you have the physical books, we're still in that first section. We're in this part 1. Likutei Amarim is what it's called. Um, yeah. Uh, let's see here, chapter 12. We're talking about prayer. Oh, last week we were talking about prayer, the importance of prayer, how to when you're in in prayer, you're in a higher state. We're going to back up a paragraph, I think. For in the Benoni, the essence and core of the animal soul, the Nefesh Behemoth, originates in Klipa, which is lodged in the left part of the heart, remains undisturbed, not displaced by the divine soul. So it doesn't, in the Benoni, that Klipa animal soul, the animal soul from Klipa, it's not, I don't think it actually is Klipa, but it's derived from Klipa. It is lodged. It's not dislodged yet. Um, it remains undisturbed after prayer. When the burning love of God is no longer in a revealed state and the right part of his heart, as it was during prayer, when the love glowed openly and was palpably felt there. Rather, the love is, after prayer, only on the inside his heart, is inlaid with hidden love, meaning that love which is natural to the divine soul, not the revealed love born of meditation that the Benoni experiences during prayer, but a natural, hidden love of God, as will be discussed further in chapter 18. That in the heart of every Yisrael, every Jew, lies hidden a natural love of God. So a lot of times you hear that a Yisrael uh, is righteous, or like, well, how can they do something bad? Heaven forbid. Um, and I think this is part of it right here, that it's hidden. There is a love of God hidden that needs to be revealed. Then, after prayer, when the love of God is no longer revealed in the heart of the Benoni, it is possible for the folly of the wicked fool, i.e., the animal soul, to reveal itself in the left part of the heart. There is a book in Hasidus, I forget what it's called in Hasidus, but it's called like Doing Away with Folly. It's a pretty thick book. Um, and it's a big book. It'd be one that we might want to read sometime. Um, so it is possible for the folly. What is folly? He, uh, no, the evil in the t galut. I think that's it. Hallel, smiley. Anyways, craving all physical matters of this world, whether permitted, except that they should be desired and used as a means of serving God, whereas at this time, the Benoni craves them for their own sake, for the pleasure they provide. Remember, we were talking about for the sake of heaven and for the sake of the world, so to speak, or the sake of anything but for the sake of heaven. Lishma, or whether permitted. So craving all matters of this world, whether permitted or whether prohibited, excuse me, God forbid, as though he had never prayed. His craving is limited only in that in the case of a craving for a prohibited manner, it does not enter his mind to transgress an actual practice, God forbid. But thoughts of sin, which are in certain respects, as explained in the previous chapter, more heinous than actual sin, can manage to rise to his mind and to distract him from Torah and divine service. As our sages say, there are three sins so difficult to avoid that no man is safe from transgressing daily. These are thoughts of sin, lack of concentration in prayer, and slanderous gossip. Wow. That's, yeah. Huh. Interesting. Thus, the Benoni is included in the generalization that no man avoids thoughts of sin. However, the impression retained in his mind from his meditation during prayer on God's greatness and the natural love and fear of God hidden in the right part of his heart enable him to prevail over and dominate the evil animal soul's craving. Now, for the non-Jew, this is interesting. It doesn't explicitly say this, so maybe take it with a grain of salt, but the Alter Rebbe seems to be alluding that this hidden love that is in the right part of the heart, he says every Yisrael has it. Up, I forget where it was. Right here. Well, I guess the Lessons in Tanya Rabbi says it. Lessons in Tanya Rabbi really hasn't failed us though, so yet. So my point is, so what's my point? Hasidei Umot Ha'olam, there are non-Jews that are called Hasidei Umot Ha'olam, kind ones of the peoples of the world, also known as kind ones of the concealment. Interesting. We're talking about the natural love of God that is concealed there. Olam Ha'olam can also be read Helem, and this is the source for that is in Rashi on Shmos 3:15, and it's talked about in books of Hasidus as well, that Hasidemot Ha'olam, the Ha'olam, which means the world in Hebrew, could also be read as Helem, concealed, or the concealment. So the kind ones of the concealment. And why is that important? Because here it was talking about how all of Yisrael have a love of God, even if it is concealed. This could also be the concealment for Hasidei Umot Ha'olam. This could be why the souls, the Nefesh Behemoths, the animal souls of Yisrael, where do they derive from? Klipat Noga, the emanating shell. It's got an element of goodness in that klipa. But it's concealed within the klipa. It can be elevated though. It has potential. It has good potential in it. Okay. What about Hasidei Umot Ha'olam? What did we learn about Hasidei Umot Ha'olam and where their animal soul derives from? It also derives from Klipat Noga. So, the natural love and fear of God hidden in the right part of his heart enable him to prevail over and dominate the evil animal soul's craving. Why is this important for the non-Jew from my perspective? And I want to say from my perspective because it's not really explicit in the text here. And I don't want to make it sound like the Alter Rebbe saying this. It appears to me that this Hasidei Umot Ha'olam, that the Hasidei Umot Ha'olam have the same potential. Does that make sense? In other words, they emanate from Klipat Noga. That's where all things that are permitted, I shouldn't say all things, but like animal souls that are permitted, derive from Klipat Noga. Kosher food, kosher animals derive from Klipat Noga. They can be elevated. They're in a state of potentiality. So,
James, can I make a statement?
well, I guess. No, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, it just occurred to me as we're reading this is more, it seems to be more written for the Jewish soul, right?
100%.
Which definitely shows how great their struggle is. I
Right.
mean, here we are having a Gentile soul, maybe a Jewish soul in a Gentile body, but and we have our own struggles, but then it's like what huge struggles they must have.
Right. 100%.
Wow.
And sometimes we see this. So like if you're a Yisrael listening to this, um, I see a lot of struggles within my friends who are Jewish. They're not religious though, so to speak. And they like have a hard time with the religious side of their culture and ethnicity, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they have a hard time with that. And so what do I see when I see that? It's because they're inundated with Taryag mitzvahs, all 613 commandments, from birth, basically. Or if it's not from birth, maybe they not in a observant family. Maybe they get inundated by one of their relatives or whatever, dumps it on them, like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And all of a sudden, like, through these 613 channels, connections, they feel that struggle and that pull. And for non-Jews, we don't have that as um, uh, not, I don't know if obvious is the right term, but it's not as in our face when we're growing up and things like this. We might have other beliefs thrown in our face, but when it comes to the Torah, it's not really there. So this was we've talked about that in previous chapters, quite a few chapters ago now, where non-Jews do things based on merit, so to speak. We're not commanded and does. So, but a Yisrael, however, when they're born into the world, it's, oh no, you're commanded and does. You need to be doing this. And that's a huge undertaking. It's a huge burden, or a blessing, depending on how you're both, depending on how you look at it, I guess. But I'm referring to my friends that maybe weren't raised religious and they just don't have an interest in it. But if it wasn't for that, though, the Torah would not exist as we know it, if at all, and the world would be a much lower place if it would to exist at all. You would not probably have a very civil society, and because of that, uh, there would probably like a be a devolution in humanity. So
Is it possible that the struggle is from their free will? They may be commanded to do something, but if their free will is not willing to do it, would that cause them struggle?
yeah, it could be Ernestine. It could be other things too. But yeah, like I maybe and that's maybe what the Alter Rebbe's talking about here. Um, so yeah, like the so when a Yisrael's soul, their animal soul, has this great potential, Hasidim Olam have the same amount of potential, but Yisrael gets springboarded into the Torah and mitzvahs, the Torah and the commandments. And if it wasn't for being Mitsuve Va'ose commanded and does, well, you see how the non-Jewish world treats the Torah. And I don't think we have even the ones who do, even the non-Jewish community that does respect the Torah, I don't think we have the facilities enough. Like we just don't have it together, so to speak, to perpetuate Torah. Like how many non-Jews do you know that are scribes, are sofrim, that write Torah scrolls? I don't know of any. I've been learning Torah for quite a long, I mean, I'm middle-aged, I guess, but um, I don't know of any. So, but the Jewish community has a lot of Sulfurim who are uh, scribes that are scribes. Sulfurim, right? Said that right, didn't I? But
You did.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, like so. Yeah, there's like a huge, and that's one of the blessings. One of not only the blessings, but one of the huge merits I believe that Yisrael, why they receive it, why they receive or will receive such so much merit, basically. So we do things based on our own merit, but it is harder, I would say, to do things maybe when you're commanded because you're like Ernestine said, your free will can get in the way. In the non-Jewish world, we want to figure things out before we do it. And in the Jewish world, there's a concept of oh, I forget in the Hebrew, so I gotta say it in English, but
It's already figured out. Just do it.
yeah, do it. Yeah, you do it and then you hear. We will do, they Yisrael said we will do and we will hear.
Right.
And in the non-Jewish world, it's usually the opposite. I feel like we've been tricked so much and duped, and the world can be such a harsh place that we figure things out before we want to do it. Like, well, what's this going to do to me? You know, there's so many things that people out there, things are trying to take advantage of us. And I'm kind of detracting. I don't know how much you wanted to go into this, but like in the Jewish world and the Jewish community, I didn't have to worry about that so much. I could walk into a shul. Um, I didn't have to worry about avodah zarah. I didn't have to worry about like things I have to worry about in the rest of the world. I could sit down, talk Torah, eat a meal, and I didn't have to worry about anybody breaking the Sheva mitzvahs. So well, my point is there's I don't know if merit's the right word, but there's definitely a huge blessing by being commanded and does um, in the Tariag mitzvahs and the in all 613 mitzvahs. I definitely see it. It's definitely there, palpable, physical, beneficial, and so trying for me to get back on track. Oh, so like Mercy said, it's got to be really hard when you feel obligated to do maybe the 613. Maybe it is, for people. And so or maybe it comes natural for others. I don't, I'm not in their shoes, but so let's see here. Um Preventing the evil from gaining the supremacy and dominating over the city, the body, and carrying out its craving from the potential to the actual by clothing itself in the organs of the body, an actual speech or deed. Furthermore, even in the mind alone, with respect to sinful thought, the evil has not the dominion and power to cause him, God forbid, to think such thoughts consciously. Evil has not the dominion and power to cause him to think such thoughts consciously. So the heart, the place in the heart can't actually think for the mind. I'm assuming it's got to be entertained by the mind, i.e., to cause the mind to accept willingly. God forbid, the evil thought that rises of its own accord. So it rises unbidden from the heart to the mind, as explained above. I think we did mention that a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so it rises. So what's the verb here? It rises. Ha'olah. This is this is the evil that rises. It makes an olah. So your heart, think of it this way. Wow, this is amazing. I don't want to get too far ahead, but the heart is kind of like where things make an olah. Like, okay, so So we have the heart and we have things rising from. You guys see that? Ha'ola, ha'ole. So things are in the heart and they can rise up to the mind. And you see, the reason why I'm pointing this out is because in the Tanakh and just even in the written Torah, sacrifices and things like that, things are an olah, like an olah offering. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to, that's why I look at the Hebrew. I try to as much as possible because you start to associate certain things. And what's cool is that those associations, they will usually wind up being the thing that they're associated with. And there's just different perspectives. It's all the same thing. It's just a different expression. So this is really cool. So what my point is, this could be connected with sacrifice, the sacrificial system of some sort. Evil thoughts will occur to him involuntarily because the evil is in his heart crave because the evil in his heart craves evil. However, the evil does not have the final say on what he will let his mind accept willingly. The Benoni's conscious mind is dominated by the divine soul. So I think Dixie brought this up last week, which is really cool. You can focus if you're this is why prayer is important. If you can focus on other things, put your mind into focus on other things, it fills the void to where the evil will not have a place to rise to in your mind, and you won't have conscious thinking of those evil things if your mind is already filled with thoughts from the divine soul. I remember that, something like that. Instead, immediately upon the thoughts rising to the mind, he, the Benoni, thrusts it aside, as it were, with both hands, and averts his mind from it. The instant he realizes that it is an evil thought, he will refuse to accept it, even as a subject for mere conscious thought, and will certainly not entertain the notion of acting on it, God forbid, or even speaking of it. For he will willingly indulge in such thoughts as for he who willingly indulges in such thoughts is deemed a Rasha at that moment. Let's see what that is in here. At that hour, Sha'ah. In that hour. While the Benoni is never wicked, even for a single moment. Obviously, then, the Benoni would not willingly entertain evil thoughts. The discussion of his mastery of his animal soul has thus far centered on matters pertaining to a man's relationship with God. It now moves to another area. So too in matters between man and his fellow man. The Benoni will not grant expression in thought, speech, or action to any evil feelings toward his fellow. As soon as there arises from his heart to his mind any animosity or hatred, God forbid, or jealousy, anger, or a grudge, and their like, he will bar them from his mind and will refusing even to think of them. On the contrary, his mind will prevail over and dominate the feelings of his heart to do the exact opposite of that which the heart desires, namely to conduct himself toward his fellow with the quality of kindness, with the characteristic of chesed, as opposed to the quality of severity where hatred and anger originate. Interesting. I say that's interesting because a lot of times there's I don't know if it's two sides of the stories or no, that's not the right way to say it. But you got to a lot of times when we judge somebody, we look at what they're currently doing rather than how they even got there to begin with. And once you understand somebody's backstory and have the wisdom of it, then maybe you can help them out in the long term rather than just being so harsh with them up front. and to display toward his fellow a disproportionate love, and suffering from him to the furthest extreme. Interesting. So a lot of times, I like the way I was raised, and the books I would read or whatever, it made Jews look as if they are selfish or some such. But we have proof here by the Alter Rebbe, who was a leader of many and still is a leader of many Jews. He's saying to display toward his fellow a disproportionate love and suffering from him to the furthest extreme without being provoked into anger, God forbid, or to take revenge in kind, God forbid, even without anger. But on the contrary, to repay offenders with favors. Huh. As taught in the Zohar, that we should learn from the example of Joseph's conduct with his brothers, when he repaid them for the suffering they brought upon him with kindness and favors. Huh. That's interesting. Because there are some books people read that show Yisrael being unkind or unloving or some such. Here it's saying being overwhelmingly kind. Thus, in his relations with his fellow man as well, the Benoni does not permit the evil in his heart to express itself in thought, word, or deed. It is thus understood from this chapter that with regard to practice, the divine soul is the Benoni's only master. He never thinks, speaks, nor does anything forbidden, but acts only in accordance with Torah and mitzvot. As regards his essence, however, i.e., his intellect and emotions, he has another master as well. His animal soul is still powerful, and it can and does arouse evil desires in his heart. So it's still lodged in that left side of the heart. In connection with the statement made earlier in this chapter that the time of prayer is propitious for spiritual elevation, anamorphism of Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson, sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, comes to mind. I think that was the same Rebbe who wrote the Overcoming Folly, which was the book I was referring to about in Hasidus I was referring to earlier. When a Jew studies Torah, he feels like a student before God, his teacher, whose wisdom he is studying. When he prays, he feels like a child before his father. Oh, there we go. Here comes Dixie. Hey, Dixie. I think we're going to stop recording and then I'll maybe pick up. I don't know if we have enough time.
In the way of thinking.
Yeah, we'll pick up.
Way.
Let's see here. We're going to stop recording. Okay, we're going to stop recording, guys, and pick up chapter 13. So see you guys then.